Merry Christmas! It's that time of year again where we all run to find our favorite classics that helped Christmas feel like Christmas to us. And I'm here to show you a side of your favorite Christmas movie you didn't even know existed. We've talked about all the Home Alone movies worth talking about, and if you haven't checked them out, go ahead and click that eye up there and do that. And a lot of you seem to think that Polar Express is your go-to to find your Christmas spirit. Well, I have great news for you. There are secrets all over the Polar Express. So if I were you, I would climb aboard. Next stop, Polar Express. All aboard! The Polar Express arrives on Christmas Eve, 5 minutes before Christmas to be exact. But if you notice, the entire time Hero Boy is gone, time stands still. Also, if you look at the ticket number, it's 0001225. That's because 1225 is Christmas. Side note, we have 2 letters on the ticket even though he punched the card like 100 times and there's only like 25 holes. Okay, back to the fun stuff. You may know our main character, Hero Boy, is voiced by Tom Hanks, who obviously needs no introduction, but did you know that there were several Easter eggs referencing to Tom Hanks and his career in the movies? One movie that Tom Hanks is known for is Forrest Gump, and in Forrest Gump, the movie's opening shot is of a feather floating through the town, then finally landing on somebody, only to be carried off and then finally falling gently onto Forrest's feet. In the Polar Express, it wasn't the opening shot, but we had a ticket that also went on a grand journey, only to find that it landed in the snow, thinking that's the end of the ticket, only to be picked up by a wolf and then continuing the journey, only to fly right back to the main character, who is Tom Hanks, who is Hero Boy, who is also Forrest Gump. Forrest was also chased by a group of bullies in a truck. That truck was a Ford F1 1951.
Run, Forrest, run!
And if you look in Hero Boy's bedroom, you will see an old Ford hubcap from the same era as Forrest Gump. Now I see some of you all rolling your eyes at this one. There's also a toy truck in the book, The Polar Express, which is the source of inspiration for this movie. It's literally where this movie came from. However, I think it's important to point out that Tom Hanks was a big part in Polar Express. I mean, he was the voice of Hero Boy, the father, the conductor, the hobo, the Scrooge, and even Santa himself. Also, the guy that directed the Polar Express is Robert Zemeckis, and get this, Robert Zemeckis is the director for Forrest Gump. That's right, the director Robert Zemeckis also has his own Easter eggs as well. Along with directing the Polar Express and Forrest Gump, Robert also directed the movie Back to the Future.
Hey, Scott!
And in Back to the Future, you may recall the mall parking lot where Marty McFly and Dr. Brown discovered time travel. That mall was called Twin Pines Mall, only until Marty altered the future by running over the pine trees in the past that the mall was going to be named after, causing it to be called Lone Pine Mall. Well, here's the Easter egg in Polar Express. When Hero Boy is looking over all of his evidence of Santa's non-existence, he has a newspaper clipping of Santa's protesting on strike. And if you read the sign that the Santa is holding, it says, "Say yes to Lone Pine Mall construction." The family photo with Santa is from the Herpelschmier store. Herpelschmier. Let the nerdy kid say it, because clearly he can say it properly.
Herpelschmier's!
That store. And when they were in the train going to the North Pole, they passed that store. Well, that store was a real store located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and Chris Van Allsburg, the author of the book, The Polar Express, actually grew up in that town.
L.E. What the heck does that mean?
Stop 115.44. Expo.
And get this, Robert Zemeckis, the director, also grew up at this address. The magazine cover of a boy finding the Santa costume in his parents' drawer is also a famous painting called The Discovery by one of the most famous artists of all time, Norman Rockwell. Here's some fun history though about this particular painting. Norman Rockwell painted a Rockwell Christmas themed painting every year from 1919 to 1942 for the cover of the Saturday Evening Post. However, this particular painting wasn't supposed to be a Christmas themed painting, believe it or not. It was supposed to be a painting that he would release in the fall. However, the publisher messed it up and published it in December for the one holiday themed painting. Norman Rockwell would never paint a Christmas themed painting for the Saturday Evening Post ever again after this painting. But let's go back in time. There's more time traveling moments here. Hero Boy wanted to blow the train horn his whole entire life.
I've wanted to do that my whole life.
Just like in Back to the Future 3, when Doc is on the train, he blows the train horn, then says,
I wanted to do that all
And get this, Robert Zemeckis directed Back to the Future Part 3 as well. Another time travel moment is when we are in the engine room. If you wonder how the train is able to go so fast and into a magical world, it's probably because it's not only powered by coal, but also a flux capacitor, which is what the DeLorean and the train is powered by in Back to the Future. The movie also is a retold story basically of the Christmas Scrooge, and they don't try to keep that a secret. We have a ghost of Christmas past who is the hobo trying to discourage our hero.
You mean this guy?
Then we have the ghost of Christmas present, which would be the train conductor. That's why he's always stressing over being on time, because he's living in the present, the moment.
Let me remind you, we are on a very tight schedule. And I've never been late before.
Then lastly, the ghost of Christmas future, which is none other than Santa himself. And here we have a puppet of the Scrooge to pay homage to the original story.
A Scrooge!
Who in the blazes applied that emergency brake?
He did.
Snitches end up in ditches.
But it's actually snitches gets
Ditches. No, they end up bang in ditches.
But they did slip a legal disclaimer in when the elves were jumping out of the blimp with parachutes. He tells the kids not to try this at home.
The flying elves. They are specialists. Do not try that at home. Kids, do not try that at home.
That's because back in the day when Superman was all trendy, many kids were injured or killed trying to jump off their roofs to see if they could fly like Superman, the guy that they saw on television. And Steven Spielberg is a friend of Robert Zemeckis, and Robert gave him a shout out right here.
Apparently, some kid from Maplewood, New Jersey stuck some gum in his sister's hair. This kid's name is Steven. So, what do we do, Chief? Like the big man? We talking nothing for Christmas here?
When Steven Spielberg was a kid, he lived in New Jersey and has sisters. And at times he was probably a brat to them like any good old brother would be. All compasses point north, but what if you are at the very center of the North Pole? If you look at the Christmas tree, it is the exact center of the North Pole, and there is a compass below the tree showing all directions pointing south. The book had a very unique art style, and they tried to replicate that in the movie. Like the roof of the train cars is the same pattern as the roof in the train car in the book. They did this because 1, to be artsy-fartsy like the book, and 2, make the movie for a fraction of the cost. Maybe that's why they have Tom Hanks voicing and acting out so many different roles, to save money on hiring talent for each individual character. But I think it's more like this. If you read a book to your child, you act out all the different voices. This is why I think that they use Tom Hanks to voice as many characters as possible. One weird thing that makes no sense though is I count 13 hot chocolate cups. Even though each table has 3 kids and there's 4 tables on either side, that means there's 24 kids, 25 with the reject in the back. So where'd all the hot chocolate cups come from? I know, it's a magic train. Then the final Easter egg is on the bell. If you hear the bell, you believe. But if you really, truly believe, you will also see good old St. Nicholas is literally on the bell. If you look closely for a brief moment, you will see Santa's face will appear right here. Cue the emotional music. One thing about Easter eggs, it doesn't matter where they are. What matters is finding them. From my crazy home to yours, Merry Christmas. Now watch this and find out everything you missed in Home Alone, you little trout sniffer. Or you can watch this. But remember, most importantly of all, gents and gentlets, share a smile. They are contagious. Toot toot!